Today I am really excited and grateful to be interviewing a very fine actor who played not only one of my favourite CID characters of all time, but he's also our first interviewee to have also played a villain in the bill as well. We're also going to be getting some fascinating insight into his new career, as I'm currently sat with a counsellor. Counsellor Greg Donaldson, welcome to the Bill podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to be here.
So, would you mind painting the scene for the listeners? Where are we right now? How are we talking today?
Okay, so at the moment we're sat in a counselling room at the Psychosynthesis Trust in London Bridge. And this is a place where, since 2012, I've been studying and learning my new craft. And now I practice here. I have a client base here, client practice here, and in Brighton. Wow. So currently we're in one of the rooms that's kind of nicely lit, a few nice paintings on the walls, and just kind of got a bit of a calm atmosphere, you know.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But today, rather than doing the listening, you're doing the talking, as it were. So
yeah. So maybe it's a bit of therapy for me.
Yeah.
To become a counsellor, you go through sort of a diploma. Now I'm right in the middle of my masters to become a psychotherapist. So, you know, it's a sort of long journey and a kind of ongoing journey. But you know, right from the beginning, you're seeing clients and working with people. So it's funny actually, because I always kind of now liken it to sort of sitting in a rehearsal room, sitting with a client, or even like sitting in supervision or something like that. You're discussing what makes people tick, like why they are like they are. And that's what it was like being an actor. Is like, you're journeying into people's psyches to kind of go, why would this character do this? Why does he, and why does he feel that he has to be like this and like that? And now I do that with real people's lives, I guess, and sort of try and help them, guide them through their difficulties and their stresses and their sort of depressions and their existential angst and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a very similar career, really, apart from perhaps a little bit less sort of song and dance and jazz hands.
Yeah.
Although, there's always a bit of that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've enjoyed your YouTube videos on YouTube.
Oh, you've seen those?
Oh, yeah, I've watched every single one. And
interesting.
The one that stuck with me was the one that sometimes people feel stuck. And that's perhaps a common theme you've experienced. I suppose it's something we've all experienced at some stage. So
yeah.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's like it is something that at some point in anyone's lives you get to a sort of place, a crossroads, if you like, when kind of life is asking something more of you, but you don't quite know how to sort of take the opportunity, or you can't see the opportunity. There's also, I think, in my opinion, there's a kind of massive sort of conditioning with people. They think that they have to do, for instance, like the 9-to-5 job. They have to do the life that they imagine or they've been told that they should have. Right. And so when life kind of knocks them in, and a new opportunity arises, a lot of people will do their utmost to resist that change and to keep it away, because it just means a sort of new, frightening reality of like, oh my God, what if I actually did change career, or I did change my relationship, or I followed this new path that doesn't make any sense but actually gives my heart joy, and so I don't know, I feel like I sort of help guide people through that process, not give them permission as such to do it, but just like explore what it means, what life is to them. That's why I call my counselling practice emerging purpose, because I just feel like we all have a purpose, even if we're not aware of it. Something is speaking through us, wanting us to try something new, unknown, something frightening, something scary, and right in that place is where I sort of feel quite alive. Yeah. Like it's an invitation for something.
Well, you've done it yourself by doing this, haven't you? So
that's the thing, I got to the end of one career and I was in a bit of an existential crisis myself. I didn't feel like there was any meaning left for me as an actor. You know, it got to a point where I was sort of just doing it, being as like a cog in a wheel, like a sort of, you know, going up for ad auditions and sort of feeling like, oh my God, I'm just a sort of commodity, and you know, this is just meaningless. Like, I didn't get into this business to advertise stuff, products, you know. I wanted to like inhabit characters and search through people's psyches. So in some ways, like, you know, those 20 years as an actor sort of served me well for this career, really. But, you know, it took me a while to accept that I might need to change and go through that sort of long, dark night of the soul, you know, which is often the kind of precursor to a sort of more enlightening moment. I sort of almost see those moments of depression or existential crisis as a kind of rite of passage, you know. It's like, we're going to have to go through those moments in life. There's no way that we're going to avoid them. You know, many people try to avoid them with drugs and alcohol and binge Netflixing, and you know, we've all been there. Binge bill watching.
My current crisis, obviously.
It's all right. You're in the right place, Oliver. You're in the right place. You know, we've all got our ways of avoiding whatever the new reality might be, and you know, they're really helpful. Those crutches, you know, it's really helpful to have those things until they're not. You know, until it's too painful, and then the universe comes knocking really loudly. You know, like something a bit more disastrous, or something a bit more kind of like, until you listen, and you know, that's all my opinion.
Yeah, but
I must say, do you know what I mean? I've got a sort of,
when you'd made that decision to think, right, I'm going to pursue this, just how long a process was it for you to get to where we are sat in this fantastic room now? So, well,
I'll tell you what, you know, towards the last sort of 2 or 3 years of my sort of acting career, I suppose, you know, 2009, 2010, you know, I was in a pretty difficult area with it, because I did feel like, as I said, like a commodity, and also I felt like a bit sort of desperate, because, you know, you've probably spoken to other actors, and there's this whole thing in the acting game where, you know, you're only kind of really good as your last job. You know, it's like you're trying to, for me it was like trying to chase a fix, like, not to put anyone down or any kind of productions down or anything like that, but I got to the point where I was like, you know, I'd go up for a doctor's audition or something like that, and, you know, there was this kind of desperation in me, like, I must get this, because, you know, I'm an actor and I'm a good actor, and I need to prove to myself that I've still, you know, got it. So every job meant the world, you know. And then you'd get the job and then go, oh, but it's just doctors. And that's not to put, you know, that program down or anything, but what I'm saying is, you know, the meaning behind getting a job got so inflated for me that it was like a sort of, I couldn't just be a jobbing actor. It felt like, you know, like a sort of, there was more of a kind of a desperation to prove that you're all right, Greg, you're all right, you know. And to be honest, that just got a bit too painful to keep walking into audition rooms and doing that. You know, it felt like I was sort of walking in there with a sort of very young part of me, and kind of going, there you go, perform, you know, get the job. And it was all on that younger part of me to get that job. And, you know, and sometimes I didn't get the job, obviously, because, you know, sometimes you don't.
That's an extremely tough profession, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, so I really I was really identified with that actor part of myself. And it just got more and more painful, to be honest. And I was searching around for something else. And, you know, I ended up in therapy.
Right.
And the rest is history.
You could help others,
Yeah, well, it felt like a sort of natural progression, really, that, you know, what I was doing, the work that I was doing with my therapist at that time, you know, felt incredibly helpful. And and in some ways, like my progress through this, becoming a counsellor and everything, I sort of healed my relationship to acting. You know, at one point I even thought, well, actually, now I've kind of done that and I've healed that, I could probably go and be an actor, and it wouldn't actually mean so much to me. You know, I could be a jobbing actor who just took the punches, or took the highs and took the lows, and actually just kind of roll with it a bit more.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something else. Maybe I can do something else, and never say never. There've been some opportunities to do some acting roles, and maybe one day I will do that again. But I won't do it with the same sort of like need for like to have a successful career at it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It will be because I want to do it, because I want to play that character. That character will mean something to me, and I'll cherish the sort of creative process with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we go back as to how your career began, I have to, while I remember, I watched your show reel. It's a genius opener. You're playing like a spy, and you're walking down a corridor, and there's this voiceover explaining, this fantastic secret agent or something. And then you do the best pratfall I've ever seen, where you walk into the camera, and then somehow, in the time the camera pans down, you've leapt down a flight of stairs, and you're just like polaxed. It's brilliant. It's a cracking bit of comedy.
Well, thank you. I mean, I sort of have to give that to Nick Alderton was the director of that and the writer, and it was such fun to play. Because and I also had a scene with Pauline Collins in that short movie, which is amazing, and John Alderton. So. Yeah, it was really fun to play the sort of bumbling MI5 agent in that short film. Yeah.
Well, how did your acting career begin? And were any genes in the family? Were any of your family into acting? Or?
No, I had an uncle who was into acting. Yeah, he was sort of my inspiration, really. But I hadn't really connected that until I was much later when I went to drama college. And I realised that I had this uncle that had been an actor and then had become, funnily enough, he'd then become a teacher and then a therapist.
Wow.
So I sort of feel like I'm following in my uncle's footsteps. I think he saw quite early that it was going to be a tough profession, and sort of got into the teaching and then into the therapy. But yeah, I sort of decided when I was very young, I knew from a very young age that, I was 8, and I decided I was either going to be a long-distance lorry driver or an actor.
Right, yeah.
I probably should have chosen the long-distance lorry driver, but I didn't.
And so, did drama college, were any of your peers, any names we'd remember, or have you kept in touch with anyone from your drama college days? Or
yeah, I mean, a very good friend of mine, Kate Alderton, I'm still friends with from drama college. In fact, we had our 20-year reunion from Lambda. I was at Lambda when I was 18 for 3 years, and they were just incredible years, And there was a sort of, we all went off, and there were actors. There were quite a few well-known actors. I think there's a good friend of mine, James Darcy, went off to. Oh, yeah. He's done really well for himself. John Light, he's doing a lot of stage in the West End at the moment, and. Paul Williams, who wrote London to Brighton and directed that, he's having an amazing sort of career. He's been directing some broad churches, and he's had a bit of a film career. Yeah, I mean, I think when at this reunion, it was what was so lovely was just that everyone almost like slipped back into their kind of roles, and there was a really sort of lovely camaraderie. It didn't feel. I think a lot of people before turning up for that reunion felt nervous. As if like, oh my god, there's some. I've got to prove myself and all that sort of stuff. And a few people didn't turn up because of that. They were like, it was just too much. But the ones who did, it was sort of we realised, we all kind of loved each other. You form a close bond, in a drama college. And then you go out into the sort of world, and it's a lot more competitive and a lot more harsh, and and then you obviously you form lots of sort of bonds with people throughout all the different jobs you do. You're sort of thrown into these kind of mad acting scenarios, and you can't help but form those kind of friendships. Yeah. And
did you turn professional in '95? Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I left drama college just slightly early and did a play at the Lyric in Hammersmith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was my first professional gig.
Wow.
And it was a pretty edgy play, actually. Do you want me to go into it?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so it was this kind of new writer, and he'd written this play about this kind of gay relationship and the gay club scene and everything. And I was playing this sort of young gay clubber, and there was this scene. There was this scene in the play that was basically the character, they were tripping on acid. Yeah. And they were also, there was a sort of like a lot of physical, let's say, intimacy. Yeah. And, you know, I was a little bit like, oh my God, how did I get into this? I signed up for this. And it was kind of like, wow. You know, but I was like a young actor, and I was like taking it very seriously. And, you know, it sold out. You know, that was my first experience of doing a play, you know, in this kind of amazing theatre in Hammersmith, and the play sold out, and it was very successful, you know. And I kind of thought, oh well, if it's going to be like this,
great,
let's go, let's do it. I'm ready, you know.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So I kind of left drama college with this very, you know, I'd just turned 20, and it was kind of like, you know, almost the kind of attitude you need, like I'm going to do something, I'm going to make something of this career, which is the sort of attitude you need.
Right. Fearless and
fearless, exactly, and the self-belief you need, almost like a kind of indestructible kind of self-belief, you know, which later on starts to
it takes the knocks.
The cracks in the armour start to appear, you know.
Well, in 1995, you did your first guest role in the bill. Now,
did I?
Yeah. This is now. I'm hoping you can help me here, because it's one of this is the important one I haven't been able to track down. You're in the last episode of Series 11. It's called Journey Home. You played a character called Terry Bennett.
I remember Terry Bennett.
Oh, here we go. Good.
Yes.
You've got to bring this to life for me. I asked Karen Carpenter, who's a big The Bill fan. She's based in Australia. And I said, I'm meeting Greg. Have you seen this episode? And she said, oh, Pop It. And I said, what's Pop It? She said, oh, that's the Australian The Bill fan club's nickname.
I did know that. I did know that. Pop It, yes.
Yeah. Apparently it's because they say the opposite of something. So it was based on your height. You got called Pop It in the same way if someone had red hair, they'd call them Blue. So it's the fact you were very tall.
Oh, okay.
The Bill fans in Australia love your height, and
they were brilliant. Those Bill fans, I tell you, they were so vocal, and like with the emails and things, they were brilliant. Yeah, really cool.
Well, you'll get a new wave when this goes out.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Trip to Australia.
You'll do a cruise.
Yeah.
Well, but that episode. What do you remember of that then? So I'm guessing it was your first telly.
I think you might be right, actually. I think there was one little film before that. Yeah, it was my first telly. Had no training in TV acting or anything like that. And I was playing this guy, Terry Bennett. And if this is the right character, I'm reaching here. But I seem to remember my scenes were with Ian Fletcher, who played Rod Skase, and Kevin Lloyd, who played Tosh Lines.
Right. Yeah,
and
that's the episode, yeah.
That is the episode. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so... And there was this couple of days where I was just on this set, and the strange thing about being on set at the Bill at that time was that I was actually a fan of the Bill. You know, I never missed an episode.
Wow.
I actually loved watching it, you know, because it had this sense that it was like a sort of kind of proper drama, cop drama thing that sort of ended. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And there were all these characters that I knew, and I just remember turning up for that and kind of seeing these guys, especially, you know, Kevin Lloyd, who was there, and I was like, oh my God, Tosh Lines, oh wow. But at the same time, I was like keeping my calm, like keeping my cool. Yeah, I'm an actor. Like, this is all right. Yeah, and we just had a real laugh on set. I just remember, like, they were so kind of nice and normal and chatty and just like, yeah, all right, mate. Is it, you know, kind of just almost like checking. What was quite funny, actually, coming on to set of, you know, a long-running kind of soap, if you like, is that the actors that have been in it for a while are kind of always checking out the guest artists. Like, what's it like out there, you know? What's it like out there in the outside world? Because they're trying to check out, you know, like, is it worth still being in, you know, in a kind of like, in playing this role, like this set role? So I sort of remember there was a bit of that, like they were kind of going, what's it like? And at that point, I was like, yeah, it's great. You know, just
straight on.
Left drama college, did a thing, now I'm doing this, then I'm doing that. You know, it was like they were I could probably almost like sense the disappointment in their reaction. Like, oh, okay, this guy certainly hasn't experienced the reality of the acting business. What was nice about it as well was just kind of filming it, and then 6 or 7 weeks later, I think the turnaround was pretty quick. You know, watching it later and then going, oh right, okay, that's interesting, and being able to sort of study it from an acting point of view and go, oh, I see. So if you do like really big movements or facial whatever, you know, so it's kind of like learning a craft, and being able to watch it back and then go, oh, that was a bit crude. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Or a bit over the top, but.
Because I suppose nowadays they teach all the TV acting at drama college.
I guess they must. I mean, I don't. I remember there was one afternoon where we went into the studio that was like these big cameras on wheels, and there was certainly no acting technique offered. Like bring it all back down, bring it all down. You know, so there was a sort of tendency to start with to do this kind of like act. You know, forgetting what the kind of where the lens is it close up or are you doing a long shot? All of that stuff I just learnt on the job basically. Wow. Yeah. You know, and you learn pretty quick because you watch yourself back and you kind of go, oh god, you know, oh my god, I can't let that happen again. Right. You know, so you sort of baptism of fire really. You know,
you must have been impressed because 18 months later they had you back to play your second guest role. Called Andy Melford.
Andy Melford. Oh my god!
And you steal every scene you were in.
Really?
Yeah, it's brilliant. You have your foot on the desk when you're being interrogated by Sean Scott, Andy, and Fletcher again. They've actually gone around your house and found you've been hiding earrings and like little bits of jewellery.
Yes, I remember.
Sean Scott, very mild-mannered DRD, goes, so how did it get there? And you go, psychokinesis? Paranormal activity? Yes. He's like a right cocky guy. Yeah. It's a brilliant character. Later in the scene when they actually turn it on and they're saying that they're going to fit you for a really much bigger thing, you're like, hang on, I don't like the sound of this. Where is this going? You know, you play it really, really well. It's a cracking little role.
Oh, that's nice to be reminded of that because. Again, there's this feeling when you, as a guest actor going into Sun Hill, as it were, like into the studio, there's an enormous sense of pressure as a guest artist because, you know, you have to remember that you're going in there and these people are there day in, day out. You know, the crew, they all know each other. They've spent weeks together, months, years. You know, they all kind of have a sort of way of working that's almost like just, this is what we do now, then we turn around. You know, it's all one camera. You know, then turning around onto the other side. So what they would always do is they'd come in on the guest artist first with the camera, get the guest artist performance, and then sort of save the copper, you know, the detective's performance for last, so they could kind of hone what they wanted to get.
Gotcha, okay.
So there was always a sort of feeling of like, I remember on that, of feeling like a massive pressure to kind of get it right, and you've been learning your lines for weeks and rehearsing it in your hat, like how it's going to go, and it's funny how like later on actually I remember when I was a detective I noticed that nerves that kind of nerves that the guest artist would bring in, and I would always just try and do my best to like just like really like soften that because I remembered how difficult that was as a guest artist to come in and then give this performance, and almost like if the person you were acting opposite was being a bit naughty, they wouldn't give everything. You know, and I'm not saying Sean or Ian did that, but I remember there was a kind of culture of that, of it getting to a point where, you know, the guest artist was giving everything every take, and if you're doing that every day and you're saying the same lines every day, basically, you know, what time was this? What were they wearing? Who was with you? You know, it's basically, you know, it's a different version of that every time you're a copper. You know,
you just got back into character like 20 years.
Exactly.
Right there, boom.
So as a guest artist for that episode, I remember feeling really lucky because the guest artist always got the best lines. That's how I felt anyway. Like it was like you got the freedom to just be like cocky or just kind of, you know, like I'm not guilty, Gov, or whatever it is. You got to really inhabit that character.
4 months later, you've joined a regular cast. So how did that happen? Did that part earn you... Because you were working with Kerry Pears as well in that episode. So, like, all your colleagues in, like, a few months' time...
I know.
Maybe they saw a camaraderie, or what, how did it happen?
Do you know what? I've never even thought about that, and I don't really know. But I remember the time... The era, in terms of like where I was living and what I was doing. I was working in a pizza restaurant. Wow. So I was living with some friends and I was working in this pizza restaurant, and I was actually really content. You know, I was kind of getting these few acting roles and stuff. I've been acting then, I suppose, for quite, well, I was probably 25 when I started.
And this was 97 still, so like
97.
2 years.
So 2 years.
You've done a couple of Prime Suspects as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I was doing that, and then I suppose, I was kind of doing this other day job, I guess, doing the pizza waiting, you know, and I was really enjoying my life. I was so happy. I remember like this feeling of happiness, of contentedness. I was like, this is great. I'm doing plays. I've got TV jobs coming up. I'm working in this restaurant. And I'm paying my rent, and I'm happy. And I just remember actually thinking that, like, life is great. And then I went away on holiday with my family, and I was away in Portugal. And I remember getting this call to say, when you come in, could you come back and have a meeting at the Bill down at the studios in Merton? And I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll come down. What's all this about, you know? And I went to meet Michael Chapman.
Yeah.
You know, the sort of old school producer type. At that point, again, I just had this kind of contentedness about me, this kind of life is all right. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I haven't been damaged in any way. I feel pretty good about my life.
Yeah.
And I walked into this casting. I had a pair of shorts on. I was very casual. I wasn't even thinking of like I didn't really think about what they were offering me. And I sort of walked in there all blasé and had this great conversation. And I think I'd been offered the part by the end of the day, you know. And it was weird. It was a weird feeling because I remember I sort of had these like high ideals of an actor. And one of my ideas was like, I'm never going to do a soap. I'm never going to be in a soap, and I'm never going to do this. I'm beyond that. You know what I mean? So I had this kind of like, you know, I thought I was like the bee's knees, like, yeah. I don't need to do those kind of, and if I did, I wouldn't ever do it that long. You know? And by the end of the day, they were like saying, okay, so we can offer you this much, and you'd be on that retainer, and and I was like, okay, where do I sign? And you know, it was a sort of change, a big sudden change to my life. You know, some positive, some negative. You know, it was like. It was just like, wow, here we go. Right, let's get on this fairground ride and go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What did you like about Tom Proctor? How did you see the character, and how did they sell into you? Did he have like a Bible, or?
It's interesting because famously, I think the way that the writers sort of handed over the biog, and I think this was true for a lot of characters, it was very much like there was a backstory. In terms of like, I think I'd been transferred from the domestic violence unit in Hounslow, right? So it's interesting. Like now I think about that, like, you know, I probably could have made more of that in terms of like how I played the character. But at the time I was just like, okay, so that's just a random bit of information. I seem to remember this. They said something like, Proctor is wet behind the ears. He's just new into CID, so he's been in uniform for about a year or something like that, and then now he's in CID, and he's basically like he's a new copper, and he's going to get on the nerves of like old dinosaurs like Carver and Lines and all this. And I thought, oh, good. Do you know what I mean? Like this should be fun. Yeah. And it's interesting because this is something that became quite contentious throughout the 3 years that I was there, at least, and I know it meant the same to other actors at the time, is that what would happen is, of course, because you get a lot of guest directors come in as well, and then they would ask you to do things that didn't seem congruent with your character, and this got really difficult because to start with, like my first year, I was like, yeah, just do, whatever the director tells me. Yeah, okay. I'm like, suddenly my character does this. Wow, that's out of out of the blue. And then by the end of it, I was like questioning everything. Like, well, I don't think Tom Proctor would do that actually. It was sort of like almost out of boredom. So I'm, like, right, okay, let's really discuss this, because why would Tom Proctor get out of that side of the car and run there when it was quite a lot of fun, because I had a lot of fun with Ian Fletcher, who played Rud Skase, because we would discuss endlessly on set, like, where we had just come from, and it seemed to like really help inhabit the scene that we were going to. Yeah. So we would do things like we would end up on set having raced from the canteen. So that was like our story. Like, we were downstairs having lunch, and then the Gov called us up. So like when we got here, we just started racing like people do. Like, I'm going to race down this corridor. I'm going to beat you. Just get there first. So we would enter a scene like having had a race or things like that. So it became sort of really enjoyable in terms of little things that you brought to that I brought to the character would then kind of get picked up by the writers, and that was the kind of hope, is that you would, something they saw in the way that you were portraying the character would then like end up in another episode, and I think that's what happened with a few of my episodes. I kind of got the wool pulled over my eyes by a lot of women. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so there was this kind of like naivety where I just kind of wanted, like, fell in love or wanted to believe that they were right and all this, and so they just kind of used me for their evil ends, basically. Yeah.
You actually starred as Proctor in over 100 episodes.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting to know that. Yeah.
I've picked out a few of my faves I'd like to remind you of, and we'll see what memories come back. Go
for it.
It's an early one with you and Ian, and it's called Out on a Limb by Colin Wyatt, and you both end up being held hostage. It's a lovely actress, Adi Allen's house, and she's hired a man to kill her husband, and he didn't actually kill him. And so he's come up to pick up his 900 quid. Well, Ian's gone in first. He said, look, I'm going to do this, Tom. And just before that scene, you said you're taking the radio. And Ian's like, what are you taking that for? Because then the station know where we are. Like, if we don't take that, they can't get hold of us. Yeah. And you said, well, I think it's the right thing to do. I'm going to take the radio. So he goes inside and ends up being held at gunpoint. And after a while, you think, what's going on here? You decide to go in. You think, I'll take the radio with me. You go on in and you end up being held gunpoint too, but then you take the initiative and you press the panic alarm on the radio, which sends all the station can hear, a DC Proctor, we're at this address, all units come and help.
Yeah.
But you read out the wrong address. And so all the cops go to the wrong, like, instead of like close, you say street or something. And so they're then going around looking for you. And the radio's still on, and then you're like, you've given the wrong address. And Ian's face is just a picture. Like, he's like, you've given the wrong address. Yeah. And when they all come in and save the day, at the end of the episode, you're like, oh, it's great, we've got a result, right? And he's like, next time I'll tell you to stay in the car. Stay in the car. Ooh. And it's like the first bit of like, because I suppose, that's in your first, couple of months. And it's probably the sort of thing Proctor never really recovered from, because everyone on the radio's known what's happened.
I think you're right. I think there was this kind of inept trait came out, and there was something sort of quite enjoyable about playing that. Like this kind of like getting it wrong, not quite ever getting it right, and then also feeling like, no, I've definitely got it right this time. He's always sort of desperate to prove that this time I've got it right, and I'm going to prove to you lot that I have, and then he'd sort of mess it up. Right at the end again, or that was quite enjoyable.
Oh, you've got some marvellous moments. I mean, there's another episode where it's actually about Proctor's ex-girlfriend, played by Annabelle Apsian.
Yes.
Had a fantastic career. That's the first episode where you get top billing as well, which must have been a nice feeling, primetime television, you're the top billed actor in the...
Amazing, and again, it's that sort of feeling of like, ooh, okay, this is new. You know, like I've got something to fulfill here. In some ways, that's sort of like when, for me, you know, slightly some doubt came in. Like, you know, am I up to this? Like, is this going to be, you know, entertaining enough? Like, you know, wanting it to be the sort of best it could be. Really hoping for that, because, you know, it's something that you can feel proud of or not. You know, like it could go the other way. Yeah. You know, and actually feel like, oh my God, I made a right mess of that, and I was the top billing. You know, so I do actually remember there's that sort of very ambivalent feeling that, you know, the difference from being going from being supporting detective in a sort of like in a sort of secondary storyline to this is my storyline now. Oh, hello.
Well, you make the most of it, because in the storyline in this one, your ex-girlfriend, she thinks she's being threatened by one man in particular, but he's still in jail.
Yes, that's right.
And you have a great scene where you're actually trying to get the answer you want, and you're going in quite tough.
Yes.
And Ian takes a back seat in that scene, just lets you go with it, and it's a great scene. You get the answer. You know, I suppose it must have been quite, again, not just from your point of view of the guest actor in that scene, but when you've actually played a suspect on the end of an interrogation, that must have helped inform you how to then interrogate, you know, and the buttons to be pressed.
Yeah, I remember that really well. There was a scene, and it was in a prison cell. And I can't actually remember which prison we filmed it in, but yeah, there was this sort of culmination in you know, yeah, you made her feel like that, didn't you, Colin? And you know, what are you going to say now, Colin? You know, and I remember that. Yeah, you know, those chances to really emote, if you like, you know, didn't come along too often. So when they did, it was quite cathartic, really. You know, to actually really have a character that was kind of on the edge of something, you know, like really wanting to push the suspect to confess. You know, and I got a confession out of him in the end, or Proctor did.
Did you have like police advisors helping you with?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were these two guys who were just so lovely. I can't remember their names, but they were brilliant. They were there the whole time, basically, just kind of like, you know, if you ever had any kind of doubts as to what would happen, you know, you'd just be sort of saying to them, is this pushing it beyond reality, or you know, can I get away with that? Or it was good fun in that way. Like you could kind of an extension of the reality. Kind of playing it up, but also sort of based in reality. So.
Yeah, there's a good episode where Proctor does get to win.
Is there?
Yeah, it's called Opposites. It's the first time you're paired with Mark Wingett.
Yes.
Who you've just shown me a terrific photograph of you on his boats.
That's it. Mark took me out on. He had a boat down in like a fishing boat, kind of. I can't remember actually where it was, down on the south coast somewhere. But he took me out one day on his boat. And I was just sick. I was like motion sick from the moment I got on that boat until the moment I got off. And so I've got a great picture of Mark sort of like driving his boat solitary out to sea, you know. And I must have just like looked up for 1 minute and taken this picture and then kind of like lay down again. And I just remember this torturous boat ride with Mark Wingett.
Well, he puts you through the mill a bit in this episode, because he doesn't think much of Proctor.
No, he doesn't.
You're the new young gun, ambitious, and you know, for his character, like he's been doing the CID now for 10 years, still at that rank, so which he played so marvellously. But there's a great bit where you suss out that. In this episode, it's called Opposites. Yeah. Directed again by Robin Shepherd.
Robin Shepherd, she was a really standout director for me. Like, She directed one of my guest episodes.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. She was great. She had a really lovely way of directing it. It was brilliant. She could just really get you into, you know, the reality that you needed to be in, so she could get what she wanted. You know, nice. And she had such a lovely way about doing that. Yeah, I'd love to
find all
know
these
what she's up to.
Yeah. Well, this one's good because you've got a big geezer comes out of the car and like presses you against a garage to try and beat you up, and you kick him in the stomach and then whack out.
Yes, battle.
And you take him out, and then the cavalry turn up, arrest him. But Proctor gets his first proper result in the bill, and you give it that look you just given me is the look you give, and you get the drums on that episode.
That's right, I got the drums. I remember that.
Yeah,
and that was a kind of thing in itself, wasn't it? Is like, who's it ending on? Who's getting the last shot?
Yeah.
That was a moment for sure.
When he gets the drums once again, Greg and I will be back in part 2.